Alright, welcome to video 3 for chapter 5. In this video we're going to have a look at the second program here called Days in a Month. And this one here is similar to the one we actually looked at in chapter 4 with a few extra little twists to it. This is a really good example of using a list box because you've got a fixed number of items that don't change. Of course, there's 12 months that never change. January has 31 days, February might have 27 days, March has 31 days, and so on. So this program right here is basically going to allow the user to select an input, and then we have to test that input and output the desired result. Now, if you think about it, most of these are consistent except for February, because there's, of course, the leap year that could change the number of days from 27 to 28 if it's a leap year. So we'll look at that in the later part of this video. So to get started, we understand how that program is supposed to behave. Now, when you look at the code, and now for this one I have given you the code, is you can start off again with your DACO model where you're looking at, of course, you need to declare, you need to assign, there's going to be some kind of condition or calculation, and then finally you've got some kind of output. So in this particular example, when the user is looking at the program, they're going to be selecting one of these items, like for example January. And so we may want to hold on to that and be able to test that. So we're going to use that as our declaration. We want to hold on to it. And of course January is being a string. We're going to declare it as a string. It's letters. And then we need to then put January into that variable, so that we need to assign that. So how do we do that? Now in this particular control, we have a property that when we select an item in here, the property is called selected item. So what happens is, and this is why it's showing up as a red squiggly line right here, just to sort of think this through, the selected item, we have to make sure that it's being sent in as a string and it's getting assigned to a string. Remember that inside of an assignment statement, both sides have to have the same data types. So this one right here is, it seems like it might be a string, but it's currently coming in, it's converting, it's looking at it as an object right now. So we have to make sure we have to assign it as a string. So we have this option, as you might remember from the previous class, where we can use this cast and then convert it. So that's hence the documentation. We can declare the January, and we can simply just use a string casting to then assign all of this. So basically it'll take January, cast it not as an object but as a string, and assign it to a string, keeping everything equal and balanced. Now that's the easy part. Now we just have to simply use a decision structure where we're having a fixed number of string values, January through December, so the switch statement looks really easy to use, or probably the best choice. And simply we just go down and say, if it happened to be January, and in an example that I was just referring to it was, then simply output the results to the text box, that's the large text box right there, as 31. And then of course break out and drop out of the switch statement because we've satisfied our condition. Alright, now the next step is to decide how are we going to do this if it's February. So I'm going to do this in a separate video because I'd like you to think about this before we actually get into that. So the idea is we have to determine what year it is to decide whether that is a leap year. That's not really obvious at this point right now because we don't know what that is. So this one right here is a little more tricky. We have to decide, is it 27 or is it 28 based on is it a leap year or not. So in the next video we'll go through and we'll have a look at the logic behind modifying this to make sure that this program always has the correct number of days regardless if February is in a leap year or not. Alright, so I'll see you in the next video.